Well, hello, folks. So glad to have you here today. Hey, let me ask you a quick question. Have the hubcaps of your life fallen off or the tires gone flat, so to speak? Could you use fill up some fresh oil? Well, welcome to the IMF Service Station, where you can get a checkup from the neck up. I'm your host, George Gilmore, and today we're interviewing Katie Rivera, who's going to be talking to us about the subject of forgiveness. Well, Katie, good to have you here. Thanks so much for coming. And first of all, I'd love to have our audience find out a little bit more about you.
Yeah, so I used to be a therapist. I went to school for counseling, got my master's in that, and then worked as a therapist for about 5 years, primarily with kids and adolescents. And then we started moving around a lot. And so I had to be home with the kids so I could let my husband go do the work, and they were young. And so it just kind of worked out that I wasn't in the field professionally for a while, moving around. And so finally, after another handful of years, I decided that I really wanted to pivot. I didn't actually know what life coaching was at the time. Like, I didn't know that was what it was called when I was figuring out what I wanted to do next. But what I did know is I was really passionate about giving people practical tools for life. Mm-hmm. And so as a life coach, I really think that that's the key thing that I'm doing, is giving people those really practical skills, tools for day-to-day living. But I also get to use my background as a therapist, because we do kind of, like, my main metaphor for most of my teaching, if you will, is kind of nature-based, where we're rooting out some of the old things to plant the new things. Because if we don't root out the old, we can't make space for the new. And so if we just try to do something new, it doesn't work, because we've got stuff left behind that's clogging the path, basically. So yeah, so that's kind of how I got to being a life coach, at least, and landing there.
Well, thank you very much. And just one more question. What was it, of so many subjects that could be covered, what was it about the subject of forgiveness that drew your attention?
Yeah, so my parents were divorced when I was really young. And so I grew up in this blended family situation, having step-siblings and going back and forth. And that was really challenging. And I never went to therapy growing up. And I did a lot of just trying to figure things out on my own. And once I got married, there was a lot of downloading with my husband about all the things that kind of transpired, with parents, and feeling hurt and not understanding what was going on. And so I realized there was this forgiveness component that was coming up that I think went the long way, if I'm being honest, to figuring out how to move through it. And so once I got through that process, I realized, wow, I would love to share that with other people, because this is a human issue. Yeah. It's not really particular to anybody specifically, right? This is for everybody, because it's a human thing. And instead of other people having to work so hard like I did to move through a process, that I could help, guide them and navigate them through. And so it's a huge topic. And not only, obviously I have training for being a therapist in the realm of people and forgiveness, in some instances, but I also have a personal story connected to it. So it's both, that not everybody gets the both.
Excellent. And so time went on, and you created, as it was, a course now that's available for training other people in what they're going through, right?
Yeah, so I had started actually with some military people, teaching the course in person for a handful of times. I did that too. And then that kind of avenue stopped. And I also realized it's a very personal topic. And so some people were really willing to engage in person, and some people were more reserved. And I just wanted to create something that people could take and go through in their own pace, in their own comfort level, but still get all the information and still get a personalized touch from me doing the teaching, if that makes sense. So, yeah.
Is it possible for someone to come to this, or to have out of curiosity to come and not really realize the problem that they're having is in that area of forgiveness?
That's such a good question. So one of the models that I show people, again, it's that whole nature-based situation. So what I say is actually the wound is like the seed. The root is the unforgiveness, and that sprouts things that we see above the surface that are weeds like depression, like anxiety, like bitterness. So some people see those things in their life and they're like, oh, I'm going to address these things because these things are on the surface. But then they don't actually know or haven't made the connection that it's actually attached to this root of unforgiveness. So definitely, definitely people who could come and not really be aware, because we tend to focus on the surface symptoms of things. My other example I'll choose is getting a headache. People get headaches for how many thousands of reasons? You could be thirsty. You could have some other issue in your body. You could be tired. So many things. And so you can take one thing for that, but it doesn't mean it's going away forever. That issue is still persisting, but that issue is also different for everybody. Yeah.
Boy, that is a good point. So therefore, anybody could be available for this course.
Yes. Yeah. And so with IMF, working with, chaplains and pastors primarily, it could be for the chaplain or the pastor, but also for the people that they're serving or seeing, right? Sure. And so if they have like a group of people, or they have, somebody specific in mind that's really struggling and needing kind of that one-on-one time. I know, at least from my husband working in the chaplaincy, he wasn't always able to give everybody, an hour of his time once a week. That's just not realistic for chaplains necessarily. So this is a way to kind of give people a tool, a resource that they might need and be able to go through it themselves. Yeah.
Yeah, I think it's a great method. And interestingly enough, as you brought up just a minute ago, that with IMF membership, we have about 1,700 members domestically. Yeah. And within the context of that, I know of several churches that have thousands of members.
Yeah, and so what I was thinking about too, this is kind of, I can do this at the end, but we're talking about it now, so I'm going to talk about it now. For churches, if your church is interested, we could, if the church wants to buy a certain amount for the congregation, let's say, they want to fund it themselves, we can work something out where I could, I can give them a code, and so that everybody can log in themselves, and, it would be free because the church had sponsored getting it and going through it. We can work that out too, and also individually, obviously, but yeah, just a thought.
Super. So whoever's listening to this,
yeah,
whether it's one of the members,
yeah,
or whether it is one of the one of the IMF members or one of the members of their ministry,
right? Exactly.
Or just anybody that now you're sort of advertising the course through this method. How is it that they acquire the course?
Yeah, so it's on my website, and so you would just go and...
Which is?
Yeah, freetobecoaching.org, and then on the top there's a tab for courses, and it's the only course on there at this point. So
that makes it simple.
Yeah, it does make it simple. And so I can just give you a brief outline. So it is a 4-week course. Mm-hmm. 4 weeks. You could do it, again, because it's self-paced. You can do it however quickly you want to do it. But I did 4 videos, and there's 4 study guide outlines that go with each of the videos. Each of the videos are only 15 to 20 minutes each. And again, like, you can pause them. You could go back. Once you get it, you have it, and you can kind of go back. It's a lot of... From the people that have gone through it, they're like, this is a lot of information, because it is. And it is meant to still be, though, like a 101. There are some action items and places to go from there. But it can be a lot of information. So for people, they can go through it however slow they need to. But the first week is really about what forgiveness is and what it's not. Because a lot of times people talk about what something is, and I think one of the best ways to talk about what something is talk about what it's not. Also because there are a lot of false notions about what forgiveness is. And people think, especially, in Christian realms, if you've grown up in church, which I think a lot of people watching this have, it's kind of been put more as like a moral should but not really given steps or parameters about what it looks like. And again, that's what I'm here to do, is give the practical tools. Like, how do I do that in life? Not just how do I should myself about it and then be hard on myself because it's not happening, right? So that's the first one. And then the second week is about my personal story, and I go into my personal story so people have an idea that this isn't just like me making this up. This is real life and what I've gone through.
A little more than theory.
Yeah, and then I kind of, at the back end on the week 4, I kind of sum up, where things are today. So that's kind of nice, just as a preview for week 4. And then week 3 really is that diagram and talking about the seeds, roots, and weeds, and the seeds, roots, and fruits of forgiveness and unforgiveness, and how those go and how they look in real life that I alluded to earlier. And then that last week is kind of I don't like to say steps, because kind of like grief, you kind of have to go back and forth. It's not always a direct line, but it's pillars or a guide, if you will, about the things that transpire on the way and things that have to happen before the next thing can happen, or in order for the next thing to happen. And then also just what people can do if they're like, oh, I want more, or I have questions, or, I give some resources. I mean, I looked up, there's like thousands of books on forgiveness. I've read a few. I definitely have read a few myself, intentionally, because I did want to get other people's also ideas of forgiveness, not just mine. So yeah, this is a culmination of all of those things. So that's what it looks like.
Wow, that's excellent.
Yeah.
Well, as I was thinking about this subject matter, thinking once again, you think of the Lord's Prayer. And one of the items in the Lord's Prayer, the Lord taught us that we pray for forgiveness, as you forgive me as I forgive others. Interestingly enough, the conclusion of that prayer, immediately it goes into another narrative where Jesus addresses the subject of forgiveness again. Of all the subject matters that are outlined there, that's the only one he goes back to, demonstrating the importance that we have for that area of forgiveness in our life. So I certainly hope that you're able to take advantage of the situation. You're taking advantage of someone's story so that it's relevant. You're taking advantage of somebody's counseling that they have given. You're taking advantage of somebody's education who's made it a study. And so I think it would really, really be well worth your investment. And the whole investment for this is how much?
It's $25, and that's like nothing right now, really.
Exactly.
This is a new thing, a new platform, a way for me to get it out to people. So I wanted to make it accessible.
Sure.
Down the road, once news gets out and more people start doing it, that might not be the case. So now would really be the time, because it has been literally years to a decade of, learning and growing and understanding, and all of those things. So to me, it's a high value. And then if people want to pursue one-on-one coaching after that to further their knowledge, their need for help in that specific area, or it could be a related area, then, that could be a separate thing too. But that's also, it's just a nice intro to me. And if you're thinking about life coaching, it's,
absolutely. I mean, you can buy a book on forgiveness and spend $25 pretty easily.
Right.
And which book? I don't know. Here you have someone who you're looking at, who you're listening to, and is a 4-week course through the process. So I certainly hope that you take advantage of this opportunity. Anything else that you'd like to share with the audience?
I think we covered everything.
Well, there you go, folks. Make sure that you pursue that website one more time.
Yeah, it's freetobecoaching.org, and it's just under the courses tab.
And there you go. Well, folks, that's today's stop at the IMF Service Station. Hey, have you been running on empty yourself? Or wondered about those warning lights on the dashboard of your life? Well, you're not alone. There's a place for you here. If this episode has encouraged you, be sure to like and subscribe and share it with someone who needs a fill up themselves. You can visit us online at imfserves.org and follow us on social media to keep up with all things IMF, where we serve those who serve others. Well, we'll see you at the next stop.